a list of about 10 pages here that includes my inventory, but you know, everything from we need to mount the bed to we need to make some inner fenders and that kind of stuff. I don't think there's anything on this truck that any of us that are into cars and willing to get our hands dirty could not correct. I'll finish getting these notes typed up and get those over to Scott, and then he and I can go over exactly what we're going to do on the truck, how far we're going to take it, and where he wants to go with it. As I was doing the editing, I realized I hadn't really discussed why we were taking the whole truck apart. But we had brake lines, fuel lines, transmission cooler lines. The bed is just sitting on there, and there's really no bed mounts to tie everything in. A lot of the cross members have been cut away. So to make this easier, it made sense to go ahead and essentially blow as much of the truck apart as possible. And then as we get into it further, you're going to find that we've taken the whole truck apart. So we'll discuss the different steps of why we did certain things, but it started out as just a means to make easy access to, say, run all the brake lines and the fuel lines and the wiring. And then we moved on to some other issues that we found. So I'll get back to the video, but that's the quick and down and dirty as to why we're taking the whole thing apart. So the project for today is to finish blowing the truck apart. We need to get the frame stripped down and squared up. I know we have an issue right here between the frame rails. They're about an inch too wide. I don't know if that's because it's been damaged. I can't really see any bends in it, but there's been a bunch of welding done on it. And what I'm thinking is they took the crossmember, the factory crossmember out that belongs in here. They took that out and then welded on it, and I think it just opened it all up. So we may be able to put some clamps on here and pull it back together and get a new cross member in here, which the kit came with another tubular cross member to fit in here between the two upper radiator support mounts, but it doesn't fit because it looks like it's too short when in fact these are just way too wide. So we'll get that cleared up. If we need to, we'll cut some welds loose, move everything where it should be. So once we've got the frame as a good foundation, we'll come back in, put whatever parts on that we need to, and get everything mocked up. And once we're sure we've got the frame right, we've got fuel lines made and brake lines made and all the little stuff with all the holes you're going to need and all that. Once we got all that done, then we're going to take the frame down and have it powder coated. So we'll sandblast it, powder coat it, and then we'll be able to build up a nice finished product for Scott. And then putting his cab, and it looks like we're probably going to go with a new bed. Kind of still depends on what Scott really wants to do with it, but that's weeks and weeks away yet. So I've already seen Robin working on this. He pulled the front clip off. The hood has a different kind of hinge on it, so the hood basically could stay attached to the cab this whole time. But we got to get that off today, and then get the cab off the frame and start emptying some of the parts off of here, which means, of course, we need more storage. this is the first time I've actually aired out the bags completely, and it lays frame. You cannot move it. They did accomplish that part of their task, and it's pretty cool. So I think for the next step, we are going to need to strip all this stuff out of here, the engine, transmission, drive shafts, pretty much get everything cleaned out and then stripped off the frame so we can get measurements and see what we need to do to square the frame up. It's had cross members cut out of it, and some of the places where it's been cut up are not in real good shape, but you know, we can deal with that. We are going to have to figure out, I was noticing that it's got a tubular cross member for this transmission, yet there's not really any way to get exhaust from the engine to the back of the truck, and there's holes in this cross member for exhaust to go through, but there's just nowhere else that it can all kind of work through. So we're going to have to change the transmission cross member, or modify it. We don't really have to change it, we just need to modify it to where everything will fit. Where that battery is mounted is probably not going to work because the cables are going to be right on the bed support, so that's going to have to move. Pretty much it just needs to go down, and I think really the goal would be just to take it down and square it up so that it's plumb with the floor instead of at that angle. And then there's a second battery mount that can go on this side, so do the same thing. Yeah, it's pretty cool. I've never seen one laid out like this, so I think that's pretty neat. But we need to make it all work a little better. And we've got this big air tank stored in the back, which is just really not going to work. We really need to get it up front somewhere. I had thought about trying to put it like right in here, but that's not going to work either, so we may need to get two smaller ones to get the same volume, and then just put one on outside of the frame rail on each side. That way we can get a fuel tank tucked in back there. So for now, I'm going to start taking parts off this frame, stripping it down. I just got to look at a little closer at where it was sitting on the ground, and it's not sitting, the frame is actually not touching the ground, it's the transmission. Transmission pan is laying flat on the ground, so that cannot be a long-term good solution. Gonna need to see if we can either change the angle of the engine, raise the engine up a little bit, or possibly just put some steel blocks under the frame in like maybe 4 spots, something that would be replaceable, so you could set the truck down and those blocks, because they would only need to be like a 1/2 inch thick, those blocks could be what sits on the ground itself, and then that would protect the transmission from being on the ground, because that could be real bad if you got in it and actually drove just even a couple feet with the truck all the way down. You'd drag the pan right out of this transmission. Anyway, I just noticed that, so I wanted to share it real quick. We'll get back to, or I'll get started actually taking it apart now.